Anyways, back to John. With the weather. So, Houston said, spinning around in his spinny chair, where have you been? Oh, come on, John said. His temper flared. His good mood burned off in a flash. Did I pick the wrong door by mistake? He leaned back out to look. No, I didn't. These are my rooms. He lifted his arms and clicked on his wrist pad's recorder. What are you doing in here? We want to know where you've been, Houston said evenly. We've got the authority to enter all the rooms here, and to get all our questions answered. So you might as well start. Come on, John scoffed. Don't you ever get tired of playing the bad cop? Don't you guys ever trade off? We just want answers to our questions, Chang said gently. Oh, please, Mr. Good Cop, John said. We all want answers to our questions, don't we? Houston stood up. Already he was on the edge of losing his temper. And John walked right over to him and stopped with their chests about 10 centimeters apart. Get out of my rooms, he said. Get out now, or I'll throw you out, and we'll figure out who had the right to be in here. Houston merely stared at him. And without warning, John shoved him hard in the chest. Oh my God. John's gonna get sent to jail for assaulting an officer. I don't know how John survived as long as he did, honestly. Hey, listen, he's running on low sleep right now. He just had a great night, and now Mr. and Mrs. Cop want to come and fuck his good day up. He was about to go to bed, take a nap. Do you believe in dragons? Because if you do not leave, I'll be dragging these nuts across your face. Exactly. I keep picturing John being played by Kurt Angle. Dude, I literally want okay, wait, in the live action of this, I need everybody to be built like a wrestler. Yes. Oh my God. Like the first season of JoJo. That's the vibe I want. Okay. Anyways. An older Channing Tatum. Yes. Maybe Channing Tatum could play the role. Blah, 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 blah. Houston merely stared at him. And without warning, John shoved him hard in the chest. Houston ran into his chair and sat down involuntarily, bouncing up, going for John. But Chang jumped between them, saying, "Wait a second, Sam, wait a second." While John shouted, "Get out of my rooms!" over and over at the top of his lungs, bumping against Chang's back and glaring over his shoulder into Houston's red face. John nearly burst with laughter at the sight. Burst into laughter at the sight. His high spirits had returned with the success of the shove, and he stalked to the door, bellowing, "Get out, get out, get out," so that Houston would not see the grin on his face. Chang pulled his angry colleague out into the hall, and John followed. Give John a lisp and it becomes a different book. Don't bother me when I'm cleaning my room. Gosh. Now I'm imagining him as Napoleon Dynamite. In his moon boots. Okay, stop. Oh, somebody cut a hole in my walker. Okay. Dang it. The pushed him out and gosh, they're trying to kill me. Oh, when Napoleon gets pushed into the locker, yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. Okay. Chang pulled his angry colleague. Re-immerse yourselves, people. Come on, I'm reading a book here. Chang pulled his angry colleague out into the hall, and John followed. The three of them stood there. Chang carefully placing himself between his partner and John. He was bigger than either of them, and now he faced John with a worried, irritated look. Now, what did you want? John said innocently. We want to know where you've been, Chang said doggedly. We have reason to suspect that your so-called investigation of the sabotage incidents has been a very convenient cover for you. I suspect the same of you, John said. Chang ignored him. Things keep happening right after your visits, you see. They happen right during your visits. Hoppers of dust were dropped in every mohole you visited during the Great Storm. Computer viruses attacked the software in Saxe Russell's office at Eckes Overlook right after your consultation with him in 2047. Biological viruses attacked the fast lichens at Acheron right after you left. And so on. John shrugged. So? You've been here 2 months, and that's the best you can do? If we're right, it's good enough. Where were you last night? Sorry, John said. I don't answer questions from people who break into my rooms. You have to, said Chang. It's the law. What law? What are you going to do to me? What are you going to do? Shoot me? He turned toward the open door of the room, and Chang blocked to move him. He lost his temper again and jerked toward Chang, who flinched but remained in the doorway, immovable. John turned and walked away, back down to the commons. Yeah, call the cops. I don't give a fuck. Why is he... I guess I know why, but it's just... I'm baffled. I'm so shocked. This is so scandalous. John's like... He's total rogue cop. It's great. I love it. I got it. I got the line. Yeah. Chang is like, it's the law. And then John Boone's like, I am the law. Round here. Round these parts. These people listen to me. Not you in your suits and ties from the big cities on Earth. You don't look like you've inhaled enough dust from the atmosphere. You don't know a hard day's work if it punched you in the face. And that's me. I'm gonna punch you in the face. Come on, you know John has a sheriff badge. Dude, he totally does. He totally has a little badge somewhere, I bet. And handcuffs, but that's unrelated. John doesn't need to use force. He's a man of the people. He's very into community policing. Yeah. He left Senzanina that afternoon in a rover and took the transponder road north along the eastern flank of Tharsis. It was a good road, and 3 days later he was 1,300 kilometers to the north, just northwest of Noctis Labyrinthus. And when he came to a big transponder intersection with a new fuel station, he hung a right and took the road east to Underhill. Each day as the rover rolled along blindly through the dust, he worked with Pauline. Pauline, would you please look up all planetary records for theft of dental equipment? She was as slow as a human in processing an incongruous request. But eventually, the data were there. Then he had her go over the movement records of every suspect he could think of. When he was sure where everyone had been, he gave Helmut Bronsky a call to protest the actions of Houston and Chang. They say they're working with your authorization, Helmut, so I thought I would let you know what they're doing. They are trying their best, Helmut said. I wish you would stop harassing them and cooperate, John. It could be so helpful. I know you have nothing to hide, so why not be more helpful? Come on, Helmut. They don't ask for help. It's rank intimidation. Tell them to stop it. They're only trying to do their job, Helmut said blandly. I have not heard of anything illegitimate. John broke the connection. Later on, he called Frank, who was in Burroughs. What's with Helmut? Why is he turning the planet over to these policemen? You idiot, Frank said. Dude, life's hard for John when he's on the road. Nobody smiles at him. There's no scenery or babes to look at. There's no police to fight. Everyone just tells him he's an idiot. You idiot, Frank said. He was typing madly at a computer screen as he talked, so that he seemed to be only barely conscious of what he was saying. Aren't you paying any attention at all to what's going on here? I thought I was, John said. We're knee-deep in gasoline, and these goddamn aging treatments are a match. But you never understood why we sent you here in the first place, so why should you understand anything now? He typed on, staring hard into his screen. John studied the little image of Frank on his wrist. Finally, he said, Why were we sent here in the first place, Frank? Because Russia and our United States of America were desperate, that's why. Decrepit, outmoded industrial dinosaurs. That's what we were. About to get eaten up by Japan and Europe and all the little tigers popping up in Asia. And we had all this space experience going to waste. And a couple of huge and unnecessary aerospace industries. And so we pooled them and came here on the chance that we'd find something worthwhile. And it paid off. We struck gold, so to speak. Which is only more gasoline poured onto things, because gold rushes show who's powerful and who's not. And now, even though we got a head start up here, there are a lot of new tigers down there who are better at things than we are. And they all want a piece of the action. There's a lot of countries down there with no room and no resources. 10 billion people standing on their own shit. Standing in their own shit. I thought you told me Earth would always be falling apart. This isn't falling apart. Think about it. If this damned treatment only goes to the rich, then the poor will revolt and it'll explode. But if the treatment goes to everyone, then populations will soar and it'll all explode. Either way, it's gone. It's going now. And naturally, the transnats don't like that. It's horrible for business when the world blows up. So they're scared, and they're deciding to try to hold things together by main force. Helmet and these policemen are only the smallest tip of the iceberg. A lot of policymakers think a world police state for a few decades or so is our only chance of getting some kind of population stabilization without a catastrophe. Control from above, the stupid bastards. Frank shook his head disgustedly, then leaned toward his screen and became absorbed in its contents. John said, "Did you get the treatment, Frank?" "Of course I did. Leave me alone, John. I've got work to do." We're all gonna live forever. Oh my god, we're gonna go to Olympus Mons? Oh my god, we're almost at part 6. I swear I wasn't reading that far ahead. I was just skimming. Okay. We only have like 30 pages left. And then we're at part 6. Guns under the table. Well, there's a nice... Ow, sorry. There's a nice little segment end here in a few pages. Yeah. A few pages. And then I'll stop for tonight. The southern summer was warmer than the previous one that had been shrouded by the great storm, but still colder than any recorded. The storm was now almost 2 years long, over 3 Terran years, but Sax was philosophical about it. John called him at Ekis Overlook, and when John mentioned the cold nights he was experiencing, Sax only said, "We'll very likely have low temperatures for the greater part of the terraforming period. But warmer per se isn't what we're trying for. Venus is warm. What we want is survivable. If we can breathe air, I don't care if it's cold. Meanwhile, it was cold. Cold everywhere. The nights down to 100 below every night, even on the equator. When John reached Underhill, a week after leaving Senzaninna, he found there was a kind of pink ice covering the sidewalks. It was nearly invisible in the storm's dim light, and walking around was a treacherous business. The people at Underhill spent most of their time indoors. What does garlic do when it gets hot? It takes its cloves off. Hello. There was a kind of pink ice covering the sidewalks. It was nearly invisible in the storm's dim light, and walking around was a treacherous business. The people at Underhill spent most of their time indoors. John occupied a few weeks by helping the local bioengineering team field test a new fast snow algae. Underhill was crowded with strangers. Most of them were young Japanese or Europeans, who fortunately still used English to communicate with each other. John roomed in one of the old barrel vaults, near the northeast corner of the quadrant. The old quadrant was less popular than Nadia's concourse, smaller and dimmer, and many of its vaults were now used for storage. It was strange to walk the square of hallways, remembering the pool, Maya's room, the dining hall, now all dark and stacked with boxes. Those years when the first 100 had been the only 100. It was getting hard to remember what that was like, what that had been like. He kept track through Pauline of the movements of quite a few people, the UNOMA investigating force among them. It was not very rigorous surveillance, as it was not always easy to track the investigators, especially Houston and Chang and their crew, whom he suspected were going off-net deliberately. Meanwhile, the spaceport's arrival records gave more evidence every month that Frank had been right about them being only the tip of the iceberg. A lot of people coming down at Burroughs in particular were working for UNOMA without job specifications, and then spreading out to the mines and moleholes and other settlements, and going to work for local security heads. And their Terran work records were very interesting indeed. Often at the end of a session with Pauline, John would leave the quadrant and go for a walk outside, feeling disturbed and thinking hard. There was a lot more visibility than there had been. There was a lot more visibility than there had been. Things were clearing up a bit on the surface, though the pink ice still made walking tricky. It seemed the great storm was lessening. Wind speeds on the surface were only 2 or 3 times the pre-storm average of 30 kilometers per hour, and the dust in the air was sometimes little more than a kind of thick haze, turning sunsets into blazing pastel swirls of pink, yellow, orange, red, and purple, with random streaks of green or turquoise appearing and disappearing, along with ice bows and sundogs, and occasional brilliant shafts of pure yellow light. Nature, at her most tasteless, transient, and spectacular. And watching all that hazy color and movement, John would be distracted from his thoughts and climb the great white pyramid to have a look around, and then go back inside, ready to start the fight again. One evening, after one of these sunset extravaganzas, he climbed down the peak of the Great Pyramid and walked slowly back toward Underhill. And then he spotted two figures climb out of one of the garage side doors and down a clear crawl tube into a rover. There was something quick and furtive in their movement, and he stopped to look closer. They did not have their helmets on, and he recognized Houston and Chang by the back of their heads and the size of their bodies. Dude, he hates them. There's no way. You only recognize people by the back of their head and the shape of their body if you love them or you hate them. That's intense, dude. He's been having dreams about them ever since they broke into his room. And why do I feel like he's like a mile away? They're like across a football field and he knows it's them from the back of their heads. They did not have their helmets on, and he recognized Houston and Chang by the back of their heads and the size of their bodies. They moved with scurrying Terran inefficiency into the rover and drove toward him. John polarized his faceplate and started walking again, head down, trying to look like someone coming in from work, veering to the side a bit to increase the distance between them and him. Meanwhile, they're just like, yep, that's John. The rover drove by in a thick dust cloud and disappeared abruptly. By the time he got to the locked doors, he was deep in thought and almost frightened. He stood motionlessly at the door, thinking it over. And when he moved, it was not to the door, but to the intercom console in the wall next to the door. There were several different kinds of jacks under the speakers, and carefully he unplugged the stopper in one and cleared away the fines crusting the edge. These jacks were never used anymore. And he plugged in his wrist pad. He tapped in the code for Pauline and waited for encryption and decryption to work through. "Yes, John?" said Pauline's voice from his helmet intercom speaker. "Turn on your camera, please, Colleen. Oh my god. Turn on your camera, please, Pauline, and pan my room." Pauline was sitting on the side table by his bed, plugged into the wall. Her camera was a little fiber thing, rarely used, and the image on his wrist pad was small. The room was dim, with only a nightlight on, and his faceplate's curve was yet another barrier, so that even with the wrist pad right against it, he couldn't quite make out the images. Gray shapes shifting. There was the bed, there was something on it, then the wall. "Back 10 degrees, John said, and squinted, trying to comprehend the 2-centimeter square image. Dude, why would this where is his cell phone? Where is his smartphone? Come on, John. Enhance. Unenhance. blah, 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 back 10 degrees, John said, and squinted, trying to comprehend the 2-centimeter square image. His bed. There was a man lying on his bed. Wasn't that what it was? The bottom of a shoe? Torso? Hair? It was hard to tell. It didn't move. Bruh. Pauline, do you hear anything in the room? The vents, electricity. Transmit to me what you're picking up on your mic at full volume. Wouldn't be the first time. Yeah. He's like, I didn't party last night. There should not be a man in my bed. I'm John Boone. Those FBI agents are trying to plant another dead hooker on me. Okay, I am the law. It happens. Transmit to me what you're picking up on your mic at full volume. He leaned his head to the left against his helmet, cramming his ear against his helmet speaker. A hiss, a whoosh, static. There was too much transmission error in a process like this, especially using these corroded old jacks. But certainly he heard no breathing. Pauline, can you enter the Underhill monitoring system and locate our vault's door camera and transmit its image to my wrist, please? He had directed the installation of Underhill's security system just a few years before. Pauline still had all the plans and codes, and it didn't take long for her to replace the image on his wrist with that of the suite outside of his room, seen from above. The suite's lights were on, and in the camera's sweeps, he could see that his door was shut. That was all.